here now Republican Senator Mike Braun of Indiana. Senator, good to be with you tonight. Let's go ahead and just start with what we're seeing across the country. 1 million cases alone today. This isn't an administration, a president who said he was going to come in and do such a better job, yet there are so many places where they've failed with respect to making sure that we essentially just have the supplies and the therapeutics that we need. Why is it that we're 2 years into this, going into year 3, and still struggling, still scrambling?
So I think it's a combination of things, but it's when I think government and bureaucracy dominates the landscape. And I was on record early, right when the whole thing was starting, that this was going to be something we needed to take seriously, but it wasn't going to probably be solved in one fell swoop with vaccinations or any especially heavy-handed approach through government. Now we're paying the price when you're forcing certain parts of the country, certain occupations like healthcare, that you either get the vaccine or lose your job, and you're exacerbating the shortage of manpower, which has been part and parcel of the issue through all phases of it. So here, thank goodness, therapeutics are now at least being brought out as a second leg in terms of what is going to need to be done to get this thing to where we manage it over time. And finally, the authorities are starting to acknowledge that it's going to take a broader approach than what we've been handed from the early days of Fauci. The Biden administration, remember, saying never going to take the Trump vaccine. Of course, then they embraced it. Then they bragged about how they'd get, put it in the rearview mirror. Obviously, that hasn't occurred. The lesson to be learned is that businesses across the country, and I even think individuals, are taking this thing in a way that they're going to have to issue their own individual responsibility. Businesses have put protocols in place. I keep closely in touch with them back in my home state of Indiana, where they've got their own rhythm with it. Bureaucracy, politicians have gotten in the way, and we're reaping the bad results from it right now in front of us.
Yeah, it's difficult to look at these numbers that we're seeing, that record 1 million cases today, and saying the administration had a year. They had the vaccines, so they had to roll those out and distribute them, but they also could have pushed some of these companies to get those therapeutics ready, because now is when we need them. I want to switch gears while I have you, Senator, and talk about Build Back Better, because there's, a tale of two bills here, if you will. You've got the Democrats saying that conversations are going on and on about trying to find some compromise and figuring this out with Joe Manchin, and Joe Manchin is saying there are no conversations.
I think Joe's made it very clear. He's been so public. He's from arguably the most conservative state in the country, so he's got to be very careful politically, and he has to be honest with his own voters. So I think what I'm worried about more than the Build Back Better, that's been floundering for months. I think it's the biggest egg on Pelosi's face, because she kind of runs the show out here anyway on that side of the aisle, is I'm worried about the bill that I've said early on will be what they fall back to when this other stuff starts to flounder, and that is trying to federalize election law. And that is now what we're going to be up against over the next week to 10 days, because they've got to get something done politically. And they're ginning that up based upon January 6th as being what they're going to do to breach the filibuster to get it done. And I think that's because they've got egg on their face with Build Back Better. Hopefully Sinema and Manchin will stand firm there. I'm worried about it. It's not constitutional. It's taking what has been the bailiwick of states, since the founding of the country, and turning it over to this place.
A lot to keep our eyes on. Senator, we thank you so much for your time and your insight tonight. Good to see you, sir.
You bet.
Okay.